Hi beautiful and a few handsomes. So this is video 2 of a couple of videos I'm going to share with you about what I've been learning lately. And this time I'm going to share with you the top 3 life lessons that I learned in the hardest year of my life. Man, let me tell you something. I've been knowing this, but it's so funny just, speaking Spanish and being Latina, that one of the sayings, the dichos, really hit home for me this year, like tremendously, to the point where I was like, why does this keep happening? Because I've learned in life that, of course, life happens for you, not to you. But most importantly, more than anything, the level of intelligence somebody has is based on their ability to recognize patterns. And so after a couple of different incidents this year, I recognized a pattern and I'm like, why do I keep having this experience where I pay for something, I invest my time, I invest my energy, I invest whatever it is that I'm putting towards X thing for exchange of value, and the math ain't mathin', like the value is just not there. Like, why is that happening? And so I had to really study myself instead of blaming or saying, oh, it's just a terrible experience, right? And no complaints, no blaming. How can I work on me? And so I came to this conclusion, and this is the first lesson I learned this year that was the utmost just mind-boggling because it just made sense. And I'm sharing this with you because the average person, when something goes wrong, when there's something that just doesn't fit, it's not up to par, it's not up to standard, the average person's gonna be like, this sucked, which is the case, absolutely. However, it's how we see things, it's our perspective. It's not that the situation is changing, it's not that you yourself have changed, it's just how you see it changes. That's why the truth is always based on who has seen what, because you can see a circle and somebody else can see a line on the side. But all that being said, there's a saying in Spanish that says, "Lo barato sale caro." The cheap will end up being more expensive. And so this year, there was a huge lesson for me in being very mindful, extremely mindful of where I invest my time and my energy and my money. Because not only did I file bankruptcy, right? I mentioned that in the last video. And if you missed all that, like, watch the other video. Watch the other video on the channel, okay? It's so important for me to understand that when there's holes in the boat, when there's leaks of energy somewhere, is going to be reflected in our experience. And so how did I, experience that this year? There's things that I value and things that I don't, as much as I do others. For example, I don't value super brand new technology, wait in line at Apple for the brand new release of an iPhone. I just don't. Some people might. That's just not a good value exchange of my time, my money, and my energy. For me, I'm cool with the phone from like 2-3 years ago. It works, it films, I'm talking to you. Awesome, great. I share this because I invested money, time, and energy into things that I very much value. And one of them, it's so funny I say this, but is security and safety, because it's a human need to have that. And so recently we moved, my mom and I, across many states. And it was a huge amount of distance from where we were moving from. And so I tried my best to find something that made sense, that could transport a grandbaby piano, that could transport all the living room essentials that we had, that were something of value, that I didn't want broken, that I didn't want mishandled. And so, at first I reached out to the movers that have moved me over the years, over and over, from my office to my home, to another home, to another home. I've moved a lot, and they're great. They're absolutely awesome. And there's, mishaps here and there, but it's doable. Like, they're very communicative about it. And they're like, hey, listen, like, this item broke, like, don't worry about it. Like, we'll cover, or like, we'll work this out. It's the communication piece, right? But I share this because this week we received our things from California. My mom's and I's things in the big old truck of the movers. And let me tell you, whew, the entire reason we hired them was because they said that they would handle with the utmost care the piano. And the piano, my mom plays the piano. The piano was a wedding gift from my father to my mother when they got married because she played the piano and it was a wedding gift. And my parents, didn't have much. It's so funny that they say that they got married for the rice when they got, when they first got married, because they were literally just living paycheck to paycheck, just trying to make it happen. And so to make that sacrifice and invest in something that my mother deeply, deeply desired and honored and could do, because she's a classical pianist, was a big stretch. And so I honor that. I know where my ancestors came from. I know where I come from. And I know that when I was a kid, we really took care of our things because there wasn't, a lot of things. And so all this to say that the delivery upon promise was definitely not there at all. They actually took, this is wild, they picked up our things August 26th and they gave it to us October 20th. That's almost a month. Wild. So unfortunately, because the things were mishandled, I learned a very important lesson. Cheap ends up being more expensive. And the wild thing is that I wasn't going for a cheap experience, because it definitely was not cheap. It was $14,000 to take our things from California to here and our new home, thousands of, miles away, right? And so I have to ask myself, what is the lesson there? Is it that I didn't do my homework? Is I didn't, follow up on the value? Did I not ask enough questions? And I know what it is. Cheap is cousins with rushing or not taking your time. And I did absolutely not take my time in really qualifying this company after our movers told me, hey, we'd love to move you because we've moved you over the years so many times, but we can't because of the piano. We won't touch the piano. We're afraid that something might happen to it. Completely understood. And because of that, we had to go with a company that unfortunately underdelivered and overpromised. And so we had a very cheap experience, a very impactful one, because the piano actually ended up being broken when it arrived. And so we're gonna have to see what we can do to repair. But it's not only that, then it's your time that goes into it. And here's where a lot of people don't see this, and here's where I'm gonna go into the next thing, right? So here's what I realized. The second lesson is frequency is always going to be a match to what frequency is on the receiver and on the sender. And so I realized that if I'm in a certain frequency, my experience is going to match and reflect that, because our reality is what we create around us. And so here's the funniest thing that happened. I had a very good discussion with my mom about washer and dryers, because the washer my mom had in her home had mold in it that had grew because of the mold in the house. And I'll give you guys a quick tip. I never thought about this, but when you wash your clothes, whether it's a top loader or a side loader, it doesn't matter. There's moisture that is kept or stays in the trays and in the side loader, right? With the window here at the bottom, on the rubber part of it, you're gonna have moisture that's stuck in there. So you have to leave it open to air dry. Otherwise, mold can grow over time. Long story short, that's what happened with my mom's washer. And then we sold the dryer. So we needed a new washer and dryer when we arrived. And so I had a long conversation with my mom about, the reasoning behind certain dryers or behind certain washers, and my experience and her experience. And so we both agreed on not getting top loaders, on getting, the side loaders. And so we end up going to a store that was nearby. And because most of our things didn't arrive as soon as we got here, there was things we were missing that we had packed away, such as, credit cards, such as certain cards we needed, certain yada yada, blah, blah, blah. So that being said, my mom's like, hey, why don't we check out something local? And so we did. We checked out something local to the area to where we moved. And long story short, there was the fridge that we wanted, but it had a dent on the side. And so they were willing to give it to us for less. And I was like, nah, it's just a dent, right? And so if we got a package deal with different units, they would give us even like a bulk price. And we were like, well, okay, let's do it. Long story short, we were misinformed by the team that helped us move into the house on what type of dryer we needed, whether it was electric or whether it was gas. So we end up getting the wrong dryer. And so we have to take it back to the local appliance store. And they tell us that they're not able to just return one or the other. They go in sets, they're pairs. And so, long story, bringing it to the home run here. I'm sitting here right now making this video, waiting for the dryer to finish drying the cobijas, the big old, bed covers that we're washing since we just got our stuff. And it's telling me that it's dry, but it's not. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, that should not be the experience. The experience should be on a brand new dryer and washer, end of cycle done, and it should deliver upon promise, right? So if the screen's telling me it's dry, I should open it, pop it up, and then it's dry. But I share this because it's the little tiny things that add up in our lives to the bigger picture that will show us the pattern, the frequency we're on, and what we continue to choose. And so I'm realizing that rushing, not taking my time, but also not doing the qualifications or really just going with my gut feeling has led me to have more cheap experiences that absolutely do not match my frequency, my expectations, and my standards for such said value exchange. And until I am willing to acknowledge that I am choosing those experiences to continue to waste my time, to continue not to meet my standards, I'm going to continue having the same experience. And it's exactly what happens with people choosing same dude, different face, same lady, different face, over and over and over until they realize they keep choosing that pattern because they still have that wound. And there's a lot to be said here, but I'm sharing this because frequency will always be a match to who you are, not what you desire. And so until I take a pause, right? Until I did that, I was in the shower and I had my shower moment and I was like, why do I keep having these experiences where the standards are not met? And there's a whole list of them lately, like a whole bunch of them. I even talked about it, with my mom, and I'm like, what do you think about this? And she just laughed and she goes, I don't know. She goes, maybe it's just, the move. Maybe it's the area. Maybe it's just we're in a, we're in a loop right now. And, the reality is if I take extreme personal responsibility, I can see the pattern. I can see what I am unconsciously choosing, thinking I will save time, money, or energy. But the reality is that's not a frequency match for me right now. Is this something I can trust that will get done without me having to review it, without me having to be on top of them and saying, hey, but did you check this? Hey, did you catch that? And I used to do that a lot in my business. I used to do that a whole bunch in my relationships. Lord Jesus, I used to do that before we would go on trips and be like, hey, do you still have this? Do you still have that? And you know what? I discovered something over the years that was just so true. When you're with people that are the same frequency match for your standards, your beliefs, your values, your morals, you don't have to worry about that. It's literally just automatic. It's literally like an auto wash. They're on the same vibe as you are. They're going to literally meet you at the same level energetically and frequency-wise. So you're not having these BS experiences. So you're not having less than moments where you're like, why? But why though? Because then it becomes an energy leak. And here's the funniest part. This leads me to the last lesson that is the most powerful out of the hardest year I've had of my life. Number 3 is it just works out. It completely just works out in the end. It's so funny, but I have to laugh at every single thing I've been through this year and kind of ask myself, well, I ended up at this spot in this exact moment, and it's exactly perfect the way it is. Amen, and so it is. It doesn't need to change. I don't need to be angry, in rage and sadness or in grief. I can be and feel it, in the moment, absolutely. But I don't need to be. I can be in a place of gratitude, in a place of curiosity. I can be in a place of, okay, Z, and talking to myself, what exactly did you learn in this process? Just interview someone that absolutely hits the qualifications. They deliver upon promise, and you continue doing business with them. You continue to hire them. Or you notice patterns and red flags, call it immediately with courage and compassion, but kind confrontation, and just say, hey, listen, we're not meeting the standards here. This is not a go. This is not going to work out. And I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of. In the process of it working out, you also have to show up for yourself and lead yourself. You have to have that good discernment, not necessarily decision making, but discernment in knowing, is this my BS, or is this really me just holding my standards and accountability because I've communicated them already? This is the standard. This is what we're going for. This is the experience I desire to have. Do you feel that's something you can deliver on? And I've learned that lesson so many times in business, being the customer, being the vendor, being even the middleman, where I recommend somebody and then later I realize, yikes, they were not ready for the caliber of person I sent their way. They wasn't ready for them. And so that's something I have to be very careful with. And in my experiences this year, I've had that happen to me, where a trusted individual that we hired recommended somebody else to complete what they don't service, and it did not go well. It did not go well at all. It was a waste of my time and energy, and really just me learning, can I really discern what needs to be done and by who? And when you take that perspective, you step back into your power as a woman, as even as a man. If there's men listening here, you step into your power as the powerful human that you are, and you say, okay, I keep choosing this experience. I keep choosing the cheaper option. I keep choosing to save a little penny here and there, but I keep having these experiences. While they're correlated, when something is not given in value, there's not an equal exchange. One party feels there's no equal exchange, we got a problem. And that's where you get into good business. Good business is being a good human with clarity and having a lot of compassion, but the most important, communication. To literally lay out expectations and projections and to say, hey, here's what I'm expecting to happen. Please don't think anything else outside. This is what we've outlined, and that takes time. That's the thing. So many people in business, in relationships, in friendships, in connections, don't want to take the time to communicate exactly what their expectations are and their standards and their desires. And so we end up with less than experiences. And that has been my biggest takeaway this year. That one, cheaper isn't always better, because you may not pay with money, you may save money, but Lord Jesus, you're going to pay with your time and your energy, and then later what I call your coraje, your upsetness about it. Lesson 2 this year is really just, you have to, no matter what, in every instance, know what it is that you're desiring from that experience. And knowing that if you didn't set those expectations, it's a communication factor, it's a you factor. So you have to view it and really look at it. Is it me or is it them? Taking extreme responsibility and stepping back into your power so you can allow life to just give you exactly what it is that you're wanting to have as an experience. And it's beautiful. And when you step back into that moment, man, it just it's only up from there. You can only have great experiences, because then you can either have a learning experience or the growth that comes with the abundance and with the flourishing of your decisions when you planted that seed. So, that is the top 3 lessons I learned this year from the hardest year I have of my life. And I don't know what the other years will bring, but let me tell you, Every day I get the opportunity to become a better person, to have a different perspective, to have a different experience because I'm choosing those experiences.